This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and today I'm pleased to have Bob Gruen, iconoclast rock photographer, on my show. It is an enigma for anybody to survive and to prosper as long as you have in this industry. What do you think the secret to your success has been?
I work very hard. I go out all the time, and I really enjoy rock and roll. You know, I enjoy what I do.
What do you think it is that makes you unique as a photographer?
I try to capture the passion and the feeling of the moment and not just the facts. You know, a lot of people are very concerned about the technical aspects, making sure it's in focus, and they just kind of take a picture of what's going on. I try to take a picture that shows how it feels, how it sounds. People should see my pictures. They should almost hear it. You know, and feel that they're there, and feel some of the excitement and the passion, and so I don't feel I'm done until I capture that.
When you're dealing with people, rock stars, musicians, artists, these are very private people. How have you been able to pierce the veil?
Well, starting off with me being comfortable with them. You know, I don't walk in awe of people. I take all people as they come, as human beings, and I don't visit this lifestyle as a journalist. I don't just come in for a 3 o'clock appointment. I live this lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono?
Well, the whole time that John was in New York, John and Yoko, I met them. I first met them in 1971, and I worked with them right up until 1980 when John died. And I still am in touch with Yoko today.
Tell me about how that experience came to be, and how special these people were to you.
John and Yoko were, incredibly famous already when I met them. I was really excited about it. A reporter said that he was doing a story about the elephant's memory and wanted me to take some pictures while he interviewed John and Yoko, who were using the elephants for a backup band. And I remember walking down the hall to meet them, and I was so nervous I was shaking, and I realized that wouldn't work like that. I couldn't, do what I do feeling like that. So I just stopped. I took a breath. I realized, I have a good life. If it got better, if I worked with John and Yoko, that would be okay too. But if not, that would be okay. And I just calmed down and relaxed, and went in and took some nice pictures of them that night. And actually, I asked them if I could come with them to get pictures with the elephant's memory, and they said okay. And I went to the studio with them, and at the end of the night, took some group shots of them together. And a few weeks later, they got in touch with me and asked if they could use those pictures on the album cover. So in the Sometime in New York album, there's a group shot of all of them together. And that was the first time that we sat down and met, when I went over to show them the pictures that I had. And we just kind of got along. We had a nice afternoon. We were kind of watching TV and smoking and talking and making jokes. And at the end of the day, Yoko said that they really liked me and wanted me to come back more often, and that I should feel free to come by anytime. And just as long as I would show them the pictures and not use pictures that they didn't like, we'd get along fine, and that's what we've done. And like I say, I still know Yoko today. John
Lennon, the New York Years. Tell me about this book, how it came together.
Available now in your local bookstore.
It's amazing.
This is a really nice book, actually. I'm very proud of this. It sums up the whole time I knew John from the early 70s until 1980. And it really, I wrote a really nice story in the book of what it was like to be John Lennon's friend in New York, and how in the early days, early 70s, we used to drink a lot. It was a really kind of a drunken time. And in the mid-70s, he cleaned up and spent 5 years at home raising his son Sean, and he really grew up a lot and kind of matured, and so towards 1980 he was a much more responsible adult, kind of really caring about controlling his alcohol and substance abuse, responsibility to his family, getting a much better diet, living a much healthier life. And so I talk about that in the book, and he's a great example for that.
How did you, for other people that have known great losses in their life, how did you get over the loss of John Lennon?
Well, it's not something you ever get over. It's something you kind of get used to. It's kind of like when you get a really deep wound. Eventually it'll heal and there'll be a scar, but when you touch that scar, you feel it really deeply inside. And the pain doesn't go away. You just kind of get used to it. Because that was a big loss, And I've known some really good people, and I've lost a lot of good friends over the years. Joe Strummer, Johnny Thunders, Joey Ramone. A lot of people are gone now, but luckily I make new friends, and I keep going.
We're here tonight because you're celebrating the release of the New York Dolls, photography by Bob Gruen, and this cover is just amazing.
Yeah, it's very pink, as were the New York Dolls. It's actually made of spandex, so it feels really nice, very silky. And it's a really cool book. We have about 230 pictures, and David Johansen and Sylvain did long interviews with Lenny Kaye, who wrote the whole story about the New York Dolls. And Legs McNeil, who wrote the book Please Kill Me, went through all of his interviews and pulled out a lot of different quotes from all kinds of people talking about the Dolls, from Debbie Harry, Richard Hell, Malcolm McLaren, Paul Cook from the Sex Pistols, Joe Strummer from the Clash. All different people have something to say because they were all inspired by the New York Dolls. And the Dolls inspired a lot of people, everybody as diverse as Kiss, the Clash, Poison, all kinds of people credit the Dolls with giving them their start because they made it look easy. I mean, I remember Joe Strummer saying he saw the Dolls on TV and they were having so much fun, he kind of thought, well, I could do that. And that's what the Dolls did. They made it look easy and they made it look like fun. You know, before that, people thought you had to practice and you had to learn how to be a musician. And when you saw the Dolls play, obviously they hadn't, practiced and they didn't really learn, but they were having a lot of fun and they were doing it and looking really good. So they inspired a lot of people to start their rock and roll life. We put out the video All Dolled Up, which is a collection of the Dolls videotapes.
That's amazing. I love the Lipstick Killers.
We haven't been able to put it out for different contractual reasons yet, the actual Lipstick Killers video. But we made a film of the Dolls as gangsters because they were playing a Valentine's Day show. And instead of doing it as Hearts and Flowers, they did it like the Chicago Massacre, and they came out as gangsters. And so we set up a little newsreel to introduce them as a gangster gang called the Lipstick Killers.
He's one of those photographers that seems to have captured my entire musical life on film, literally.
Let's talk about some relationships from the punk world. Debbie Harry.
The first videos we did with Blondie, we did 3 videos in one day. Bob was the cameraman on all of them.
Debbie's just gorgeous, and she's just a real Jersey girl with a real wise-ass sense of humor. A lot of fun to be with.
He just happens to be around at the right place at the wrong time.
The Ramones.
Well, the Ramones, I remember the first time I saw them, they played 13 songs in 16 minutes, and it just blew out the place, and everybody turned to each other and it was like, what was that? But eventually we got used to the speed, and now again their songs sound like anthems. They were just simple, pure power. To see them live was the most powerful show. They're fantastic.
One of my favorite Bob Gruen photos, of course, the Ramones photo, because I'm Linda Ramone. My favorite one I have at my house is Johnny Thunders and Sable Starr, and my second favorite one is Jeff Beck.
What do you think was special about Joey Ramone?
Well, I think it was Lenny Kaye who said that Joey Ramone gave to the world with love, and so the whole world loves Joey Ramone. He was a very sweet guy who had a great heart, a really special guy.
The man that they call now the godfather of punk, Iggy Pop.
Well, Iggy is the godfather of punk, and he's got certainly the best body in show business. I mean, and I hear he doesn't even work out, although I know he's got a good girlfriend. Maybe that helps him, because he must do something to keep those abs so strong. But he's incredible on stage. He's just pure power. And it's funny because I've seen him, he's actually Jimmy Osterberg. And when you meet him, he's like this really nice guy. And he's like, oh, hi, how are you? But then there's a time just before the show, he'll go up against the wall, and it's like watching somebody turn into the Hulk. It's like he becomes this superhero, and all of a sudden he's Iggy Pop, and you better get out of his way. It's not Jimmy anymore. And it takes him about 5 or 10 minutes backstage after the show. He'll calm down. All of a sudden he'll be nice, hi, how are you again, But when he's Iggy, just stay out of the way, because he is just pure power and pure terror and pure aggression, and in a good way.
Every picture here I've stared at. I mean, I came in here and I said, Helen, let's look at the pictures. Oh, I've seen them all, but I've stared at them over and over again. I mean, through all these years, for what, 30 years? I every time you see one of his pictures, you can't help but really look at it and all the details, and they're so exciting.
You did have a close relationship with The Clash.
Well, I saw them the first time I went to England in '76. I happened to see one of the very first shows they played in London, and I was totally blown away by the power and the fury and the intensity that was The Clash. And I came back a year later, and I got in touch with the record company to ask them, if I could go to the show. And they said, "Oh, the band doesn't work with us. They don't, they don't agree with the corporate ideas, and we can't really help you." And I said, "Well, can you tell me where they're playing? I'll buy a ticket on the sidewalk if I have to. I'm a fan. I want to see them." Because a lot of what I do is not just a job. It's because I need to be there as a rock and roll fan. And they said they were in Glasgow, and I flew up there to see them. I happened to run into them at the desk. Mick and Paul were doing something just as I was checking in. Mick remembered having met me a year earlier when I was in England, and so they hooked me up with some tickets and PhotoPass for that night. So when they came to New York in September of '78, I was one of the few people that they already knew from New York, and we hung out a lot together.
And you actually used to open some of the Clash shows.
I played the bugle for the Clash. That was kind of funny. I was at Paul's house before a show, and I saw a bugle there. Paul was getting ready. He was going to give me a ride to the show. And I always, whenever I see a bugle, I just pick it up and start playing it. I used to be a Boy Scout, and I know how to play that. And they said, wow, you can play the bugle? I said, yeah. And he said, we're looking for somebody to open the show with a bugle call. We want to play a call to arm and a charge. And I said, well, I can do that. And so I did a bunch of shows in England. And that time I was a musician, and I actually got to stay in the dressing room. And Mick says, well, what notes you're going to play? And we had to actually go over my part and figure it out. And it was kind of fun.
What is special about your Clash book?
There's, I think, over 300 pictures in here, and it's really well done. And also, we did interviews with Joe and Mick and Paul and Topper.
Bob, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you around. Come see the exhibits and buy the books. Clash, John Lennon, The New York Years, and The New York Dolls, photographs by Bob Gruen. All of them out now. Available online or in your local bookstore.
This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show with Bob Gruen, signing off.
The Blairing Out show.